his sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Verse 11. One day when Moses had grown up, he went out among his people and saw their forced labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, and one of his kinsfolk. And he looked this way and that way, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. When he went out the next day, he saw two Hebrews fighting. He said unto them, knowing the one was wrong, why do you strike your fellow Hebrew? And the Hebrew answered, who made you a ruler to judge over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? Then Moses was afraid and thought, surely this thing that I have done is known. When Pharaoh heard it, he sought to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh, and settled in the land of Midian, and sat down by the water. Before you take your seats, would you help me to announce this? So just touch your neighbor and just say, neighbor, I don't care what you heard. I survived the river. Here is Moses presented to us this afternoon in full measure. He comes to us in this passage both as a baby and as an adult. One comes to talk about Moses, and when one does it, I recognize that I am not talking about someone unfamiliar to you. If you have been in the church for any amount of time, you have heard about this man, Moses. But I am also very clear that sometimes God will bring you back to what you know to show you what you didn't understand. And so this morning we return again to look at Moses, to observe him and all of the sound and fury that is his life. Please look at Moses and notice how on the one hand he is a prince of Egypt, and yet on the other hand he is a Hebrew hiding in Pharaoh's house. On the one hand he has all of the machinations and all of the power ascribed to being a prince of Egypt, and yet sequestered somewhere deep in his heart, he is also painfully aware that he is a Hebrew. One wonders how strange it must have been for Moses to get up every morning knowing that if people knew who he was, he would be cast out of Pharaoh's house. On the one hand, he is a prince of Egypt, and yet on the other, he is a Hebrew hiding in Pharaoh's house. Please understand, can I teach us a little bit this morning? That word Hebrew comes from the Egyptian Coptic word meaning Habiru. The word Hebrew comes from Habiru, and in the Egyptian Coptic tongue, that word Habiru means outside. Notice the strange tension of being a son of Pharaoh, and yet in your heart you know that you are an outsider. You know that there is something about you that if everybody knew was there, they would cast you out of the house. You know that there is a side of you that is unacceptable in Pharaoh's house. And yet you eat Pharaoh's food and wear Pharaoh's clothes, and you drive Pharaoh's clothes, and yet you know that somewhere deep in the recesses of your mind, you are unacceptable, and you will never be accepted in Pharaoh's house. I submit to you that there is among the strangers of God, God In the strange tension, he must choose between whether he will identify as being the son of Pharaoh with all of the trappings of power, or whether or not he will ascribe to his heritage as a Hebrew. It must have been easy for him to slide and pass as Pharaoh's son, but there is always a part of us, there is always a part of us, there is always a part of us that will not believe the lie. No matter how much we lie to ourselves about who we really are, there's a part of us that will not go along with the lie. There's a part of us, maybe your big toe, there's a part of us that will not consent to falsehood. And here is Moses in the passage knowing he is not Pharaoh's son, and when he sees one Hebrew fighting another Hebrew, he rises up because there's a part of us that will not go along with the lie. If you're taking notes, write this down. Authenticity is the tax we pay for living. God has never asked you to be perfect. Please, Dr. Shannon. God has never asked you to be perfect. God has never asked you to be so righteous that you don't make mistakes. What God has asked you to be is authentic. He has asked you to be honest. He has asked you to come into his presence and to be real with him. Stop somebody and say, we're going to get real in here today. I want everybody in here to take the church mask off and to take that lie you bring in the church off and to get real in here this afternoon. And let everybody in here know, no, I don't have it all together. If you cross me, I might cuss you out. If you mess with me, I might slap your face. I'm not all together what I should be, but I'm becoming what God wants me to be. Can somebody pray? Moses is lying in Pharaoh's house, and God puts him in a situation where he will have a defining moment. These ways of God are strange, are they not? As God will put you in a moment where you have to prove who you are. It is the awful grace of God that sometimes in order for God to love us, he must oppose us. Sometimes in order for God to embrace us, he must reject us. In order for God to elevate us, he must kick us out of the darkness and make us stand in the light. It's easy to be great in the darkness when nobody can see you. Because with bright light comes hot heat, and everybody ain't ready for the hot heat. And so people will be great behind closed doors. They have answers when it don't count. But God did not create you to be great in the shadow. He called you out of the darkness of your mother's womb to take your place in history. Slap somebody and say, neighbor, I got a destiny. I didn't come this morning to play church. I came to get my destiny. And every now and then God will put you in a situation where you cannot hide.
Good. Yes, sir.
Moses sees the two Hebrews fighting. He sees the Egyptian killing the Hebrew, and the Hebrew in him rises up. And the Hebrew in him rises up. He sees the Egyptian killing his brother, and the Hebrew in him rises up. In that one moment, he forsook the robes and the rings and the crowns and the chariot of Pharaoh. And that one moment, the Hebrew in him rose up, and he couldn't hide it anymore. When the Holy Ghost in me, my son went to school, they're a year apart, and when they went to school for 4 years in Atlanta, I sent them a text every day, and I told them, remember who you are. one of them say to him, Moses, who do you think you are? They say to him, you know you've been passing in Pharaoh's house and now you want to act like you're the monitor of Hebrews. Please understand, my dear brother and sister, whenever you rise up to be better, will always be somebody in your life who want to ask you, who do you think you are? As long as you were a fool, you were acceptable. Let me try it over here. As long as you were a fool, you were acceptable. When you were crazy, nobody had a problem with you. When you were getting drunk in the club, y'all was so good. When you were getting drunk in the club and passing out on your way home, so they couldn't wait to hang out with you. But the moment you decided to get delivered, he was conflicted about who he was, and you will not, you shall not deliver somebody from something that you're still stuck. Come on. He was not qualified to manage the dispute. When they said to him, look at you, Mr. Moses, son of Pharaoh, we know who you are. They were right on the one hand because he was passing, he was hiding, he was confused. But there was something about him that they did not know. It was a side of him that could not be monitored by their eyes. It was beyond sensual perception. It was a side to Moses that was not present in that moment. They thought that he began his life in Pharaoh's house, along the carpeted floors and padded walls and gold emblems of Pharaoh's wealth. But what they did not know, what they could not have known, was that this conflicted soul did not begin in wealth. He started his life in the river. Yeah. He started his life in the river. With the wails of the mothers of Israel wailing in the wee hours of the night as Egypt's soldiers sought to kill the firstborn sons. All of the children under 2 years old were killed, and that's where Moses started his life. Moses didn't start his life in wealth. He didn't start his life in power. He started his life in the river. Touch somebody, say, in the river. He started his life in the Nile River. Touch somebody, say, the Nile River. Can I preach it like I feel it today? The Nile River has 15 species of venomous snakes. The Nile River has the largest crocodiles in the world. The Nile River has 4 specimens of lizards. The Nile River has some of the biggest frogs, poisonous frogs in the world on the Nile River. The mosquitoes in the Nile River bring so much malaria that if it bites you, you die in 3 days. Moses began his life among the snakes and the crocodiles and the frogs. And his life among the mosquitoes and the infestation and the disease and the mud and the marrow and the whale. He didn't start his life in no hospital. He didn't start his life in no nice house. He started his life among snakes and alligators. Yes, he was confused. Yes, he was conflicted. Yes, he didn't know who he was. But there was something about this man. He had something in him that was strong enough to get him out of the river. I come to tell somebody, you may be out of your mind this afternoon. You may be crazy this afternoon. You may not have it together this afternoon. But I know where you came